the light. Oh.
On this week's show, I'm left wondering why everybody's gone to the Rapture.
John rates his favourite apocalypses.
You're over the apocalypse once you have a professional sports league. True fact.
Aoife pays a visit to the home of the Chinese room.
And suddenly we're a game studio. And then you're going, okay, we're a game studio now, what do we do next?
And these plucky survivors explore the new wave of experiential games.
Never once did I think, this isn't a game. I just thought, well, I don't know what it is. I don't care what it is. I just really enjoy it.
It's the end of the world as we know it on this Video Game Nation. At first glance, Yorton is an idyllic, if rather unremarkable place.
It's the sort of quaint, bucolic village you've no doubt happened upon or even lived in at some point in your life, where one of everything, one pub, one post office, one garage, one phone box, one church, is more than enough. All the locals know each other and each other's affairs, and high drama can be spun out of the most insignificant circumstances.
If one was looking to create a Shropshire-based spin-off of Emmerdale, this would be the perfect place to set it, or at least it would be if there was anyone left.
On the 6th of June 1984, something terrible happened in Yorton. The circumstances aren't quite clear, but it appears that the entire village's occupants either left in a hurry or, worse, didn't leave at all. There are signs pointing to a major incident at every turn. Abandoned cars, quarantine notices, and streets littered with dead birds. But the whats, whys, and hows are all frustratingly murky.
As an unnamed, unknown observer arriving in the aftermath of the event, it's your job to unravel this fascinating mystery by, well, not doing anything really.
Everybody's Gone to the Rapture is not about action, nor solving puzzles, nor even raising a virtual pet. Instead, you glide at a deliberately glacial pace through a seamless, keenly observed curve of Shropshire countryside, soaking up the atmosphere and marvelling at just how delicately detailed and lived in everything looks. It's a small town with a big story to tell.
So environmental storytelling is something only games can do to respect. I mean, certain theatre maybe, but you know, games are the thing where you get thrown into a space and you can, at your leisure, explore it.
I think we're used to having video games kind of lead us, you know, through the world that they're presenting us with, you know, to different degrees, sometimes gently, sometimes not, but what these games do is they invite you to explore and to follow clues.
I think it's just a bit of a relief to have a game in which you're not holding a gun and chasing people and jumping over things and murdering things. Like, it's relaxing. It's actually a form of escapism for a change.
If it all sounds a little lonely, that's because it is. You won't see a single human face during your eerie hike, and the village is suspiciously devoid of mirrors and photographs. It's all slightly contrived, but it only adds to the sense that every trace of humanity has been stripped from this provincial twilight zone. Well, almost every trace.
During your travels, you'll happen upon ethereal orbs of light that appear to be urging you, as much as an orb of light can urge, to follow them. Whether you opt to obey these erratic entities or go your own way, you'll soon witness echoes of conversations past, the participants briefly materializing as pulsing clusters of glowing motes before vanishing once more into the ether.
These ghostly snapshots sometimes provide insight into this unsettling scenario, but often they simply add colour and depth to the lives and relationships of Yorton's former occupants. It's a curious mix of gentle radio drama and classic British sci-fi horror. The Archers meets Day of the Triffids, if you will.
It's a million miles from the irradiated wastelands and horror-infested cityscapes we've seen in the likes of Fallout and The Last of Us, which is just as well because there are only so many mutants and zombified humans you can take before the end of the world loses its luster.
No. I have sort of had my fill of the post-apocalyptic games that are all sort of set in this sort of terrible Mad Max, slightly steampunk world where everybody's suddenly wearing sackcloth, which I've never really understood. Like, there's enough branches of Top Man in this country that if the apocalypse happened tomorrow, we could all go around in check shirts and chinos for another 25 years.
If you can do post-apocalypse well, then it's worth doing. I think that, you know, I didn't like the idea of The Last of Us until I played it, and I just loved it.
Do I need to remind you what is out there?
I've enjoyed a lot of them, and I will no doubt enjoy a lot more, but I think it is probably a little bit depressing that so much development time is given over to that rather than trying to come up with something a bit more fresh and unique. There's a lot more you could do in games than just be sad because a bomb happened.
If there's any reassurance to be taken from this particular vision of our untimely departure, it's that we'll be played out to beautiful music.
Everybody's Gone to the Rapture adopts a cinematic tack of underpinning moments of drama, tragedy, and melancholy with a soundtrack to match, sometimes allowing the notes to reverberate long after the moment as you process a scene's emotional impact. It stands as one of the most haunting and affecting scores in gaming history.
But no matter how visually striking or aurally arresting this Rapture is, it all counts for nothing if the story doesn't inspire you to push forward, especially when there's no challenge to fall back on.
And Rapture just about gets away with it. The central cosmic whodunit, or rather what done it, is gripping right up until its frustratingly ambiguous close, and the mundane small-town dramas raise the right questions about what really matters when the end is nigh.
Everybody's Gone to the Rapture isn't for everyone, nor should it be. It's yet another sign that the term video gaming is becoming an increasingly outmoded label for a medium that continues to diversify and attract completely new audiences. Some will find it enthralling, others will be bored to tears. As they say, one man's meat is another man's poison. Personally, I was left picking the bones clean. Now, isn't it strange that for a species so preoccupied with progress, that we've got such a morbid fascination with how it's all going to end? On that note, here's John Robertson with his 5 favourite visions of how mankind will meet its maker.
Hello, television friends. High def, high five. The apocalypse, the favourite subject of books, TV, movies, gaming, and that weird Christian bloke who stands shouting out the front of the train station with a megaphone and a Bible. Yes, mate, we're all worried, but we're also in a rush, and I'm betting the Rapture doesn't have ticket barriers.
Whether caused by atomic wipeout, mutant disease, or biblical massacre, post-apocalyptic worlds are one of the best holiday destinations in gaming, providing hours of fun that you can only have when all your friends are dead and muscular chaps in bondage gear keep trying to steal all your gasoline.
Up first, the game based on the anime, based on the manga about the guy walking around punching people until their heads explode. And I'm sure it's got more of a plot than that, but nobody's ever noticed.
In this Mega Drive adventure, you are legendary hardman Kenshiro, who wanders around a world obliterated by nuclear war, obliterating what's left of it. In this strange land of anarchy and high fashion.
You ever noticed how much the 80s version of the future looks like the 80s?
You'll walk from left to right through a series of sparse, barren landscapes, punching people until their heads explode. That's literally all you do.
The usual post-apocalypse is a place of sand and shacks and men with stubble and guns, gruff fellows who maybe wear a big hat and have a child that they're meant to look after, which is why when I was making this list, I kept trying to put Red Dead Redemption on there, but then I realised that's not set after an apocalypse, it's just a Western, which kind of tells us a little bit about the post-apocalypse genre. 1, they're basically space westerns, and 2, I kind of think they're a bit of an insult to anyone who's ever lived in rural Mexico, because we're pretty much saying, hey, your country looks like the end of the world. Hola, amigo. Please don't be angry.
But if you give it enough time, civilization rebuilds, and that's when you get Spira from Final Fantasy X. A gorgeous planet that's recovered enough to have a Blitzball League, Spira is a lush, vibrant place, but filled with monsters and not with people or cities. The centuries passing mean people can't remember what happened, so they interpret history differently.
And you're left with something a bit more interesting than just, well, there was a big explosion and now I live in a shack and poop in a bucket. In the future, mankind will be destroyed by the Titans, a species of enormous people who either look like skinless pentathletes or colossal babies and who chow down on human beings for fun. Also, everywhere's going to look a lot like Europe.
Attack on Titan, Humanity in Chains is a 3DS game that puts you in charge of Eren Yeager and his friends from the 104th Training Corps as they attempt to stop the Titans consuming the last of the world's population. The nightmare world of Attack on Titan is a bleak, low-tech place, filled with brickwork and thatched cottages, where the good guys fight with swords and abseiling gear powered by compressed air.
It's hugely original, even if the 3DS might not be the best home for conveying the horror of being the smallest thing in a world of giants. Call the bloke in from the train station. This one's for him.
I bought Darksiders because I liked God of War, so an action game where you're War, one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, seemed like a great idea, especially since that'd make you the God of War. In the first game, you arrive in time for Armageddon itself, but the end of the world has come too soon and you're framed for it, which means you have to thump your way through the ruined earth to find the demons and gods who set you up.
You might recognise this plot as being a bit God of War.
In Darksiders 2, you get to be Death trying to resurrect humanity after the early apocalypse apparently caused by your brother War.
1. Death resurrecting people sounds like a tremendous idea. And 2. Who doesn't like the idea of an early apocalypse? Get the megaphone. Someone once described Fallout as atom punk, which is a catch-all term for any form of media derived from 1940s to 50s atomic age paranoia. So get ready for a game series made from the good old days, back when televisions looked like pregnant women. And if you weren't saluting the American flag, then you were some kind of goddamn communist.
Fallout has milked the nuclear cow since 1997's original RPG put us in Southern California 84 years after a war for fuel. Since then, it's been a world of retrofuturism and sweet 50s graphic design, and its first-person series is legendary.
Hold on! We'll be vanishing from your screens in just a moment, but don't worry, it's nothing sinister. Well, unless you consider it sinister to create 30-second messages designed to tap into your deepest insecurities in order to sell stuff. We'll see you in 3.
That's how brilliant that game was. It didn't even have a story.
Wait, what was that? I thought I was injured. Again? This itch isn't going to scratch itself.
Welcome back. Now, some call them first-person explorers, others walking simulators, and some closed-minded folk refuse to acknowledge them as games at all. However you choose to categorize or dismiss them, there's no denying that they highlight the sort of diversity the medium is uniquely capable of and offer plenty of food for thought for our experts.
I think it's interesting to see the rise of experiential games because it kind of echoes movements that have happened in other art forms before. It's just giving you a very pure experience. You know, an experience like Journey is just go over there. You know, that's something like PT, Silent Hills. It's just keep walking down this corridor. Just keep walking down it until stuff happens. It feels like it's maybe only happening to you, which is incredible. I find that there's elements of that even in games like Minecraft. I remember the first time I saw like Mushroom Islands, and it's like, what's this? This is crazy. You know, there's not really a lot you can do there. There's some resources, but it's more the experience of just finding this amazing new place.
I think we're so used to having the story really fed to us and everything being like, oh my God, do you remember 2 minutes ago when we did that thing? Well, what's really important is that we go over here and get that guy's hat, remember? And you're like, oh my God, I was here, I was playing this, I was the one playing 2 minutes ago.
My favourite of these games is probably the Stanley Parable, because it's really funny, first of all, but also it kind of takes all these things that as gamers we've sort of been trained to just accept as the rules of gaming and just, you know, that's how games are and we don't even think about them or question them anymore. And it really kind of exposed all those and made you think about what gaming is and why games are designed like they are and why we play them like we do.
Let me prove that I'm on your side.
I really enjoyed Dear Esther, which is set on a very bleak island in the Hebrides, and it's a very sullen, very sad story, but told in this kind of beautiful, evocative environment. It's almost kind of like taking a lovely walk and being told a lovely story. A sad story, but a lovely one, and it's an experience. And I remember playing it and thinking, this is something completely new. I've never done this before. And never once did I think, this isn't a game. I just thought, well, I don't know what it is. I don't care what it is. I just really enjoy it.
I think Proteus is probably one of my favourite of the games. It's like, I'm on this weird planet that I'm exploring and I'm suddenly warping to these other places. I get it. I'm someone who was on an experimental spaceship whose new sort of time-based warp drive exploded above the planet. And that's making the planet like go all crazy, and I'm going through these warp holes, and I don't know what's going on because I was in the crash, I've forgotten everything. Then I got to the end of the game and then was like, you've made that up. You've come to your own conclusion of that entire thing. So that's how brilliant that game was. It doesn't even have a story.
Most recently, probably Gone Home. That was really, really nice. And because you weren't quite sure what the game was about, because it sort of felt a bit eerie and a bit creepy, but actually it was just about a girl having some teen angst, which is a bit weird and creepy, but you know.
So I think the future of experiential games is more freedom, more open worlds, more capabilities for players to sort of experience their own story and what it is, rather than having this fixed narrative. And I think what we're going to see maybe is the melding of traditional action adventure games with experiential elements. You know, we saw this a little bit in the Uncharted games. Uncharted 2 had the very famous village sequence, where you just walk through a village and experience it. I think we're probably going to see more of that.
Hey, how are you, fella?
As technology gets better, as consoles become more powerful, we can start taking some of the resources away from just pretty graphics and towards adaptive AI, conversational AI, people that you can talk to and interact with in a believable and interesting way. And once you start doing that, then you're opening up an entire new genre of experiences, like a world populated by people that you can talk to, not in like a binary, making a choice way, but in a real way that makes you feel like you are interacting with the world in a very personal level.
Well, why don't I help you with yours? Then yours will be brilliant.
All right. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture looks and feels like a super slick, super polished game from a well-established developer. But in reality, the British indie studio responsible for the title, The Chinese Room, came about almost by accident. Co-founded by just two people, Dan Pinchbeck and Jessica Curry in 2007, the pair began in the modding community, turning out experimental titles like Conscientious Objector, a Doom 3 mod, before turning their attention to Antlion Soccer and survival horror title Corsikovia, both mods for Half-Life 2. But the pair really began to make waves in 2012, when they remade another of their mods, Dear Esther, and you know what? You don't have to take my word for it. Here's studio founder Dan Pinchbeck to explain how it all began in his own words.
Jess and I started, we made some mods back in 2007. I was working as an academic, and I was looking at first-person shooters, and there was loads and loads of theory around first-person shooters and loads of things about what games could and couldn't do and this sort of thing. And I got very, very frustrated with it and just thought, actually, do you know what, we should just make some stuff and see if it works. So Jess and I made a bunch of mods. We made a Doom 3 mod, made a couple of Half-Life 2 mods, and one of these was Dear Esther, which was just about going, those really quiet bits in games where you're just soaking up the atmosphere, they're really cool. What if the whole game was just that? And so we made it, and people loved it, and we had like 100,000 downloads in 6 months. It attracted the attention of an artist called Rob Briscoe, who came along and said, look, I'd like to reskin this, and he reskinned it, and it was amazing. And we thought, do you know what, actually, this is really amazing, this is really fantastic. The soundtrack by Jess was extraordinary, Rob's artwork was amazing. We could sell this. We didn't really expect to sell any. We thought we'd maybe, hopefully, make just enough money to be able to pay Rob and Jess for the time they put in. And yeah, it sold nearly 1 million units. And suddenly we're a game studio. And then you're going, okay, we're a game studio now, what do we do next?
What they did next turned out to be a collaboration with Frictional Games on a sequel to the terrifying Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs was something a little different for the studio, and even though they had dipped their toes into horror before with Corsikovia, this time they'd have to answer to another studio.
Frictional contacted us, I think in 2012, and asked us if we'd like to make a short Amnesia game for them. They were working on Soma at the time. It was really, really intensive and complex, and they knew they wouldn't get another game out before Soma, so they'd actually played Corsikovia, ironically, even though it's really bad, and said, we think you've got a horror game in you, do you want to make an Amnesia thing for us? And initially it was supposed to be kind of not much more than a mod, couple of hours long, little story thing, and we started making it. And we got really excited about the story, and Frictional got really excited about the story, and suddenly it was like a full Amnesia game. The hardest thing about it was Dark Descent was actually quite a slow-paced psychological horror, but it had gone absolutely insane on YouTube. And so there was this really sort of divided fan base between people that wanted jump scares for YouTube videos and people that wanted a really slow-burning psychological horror. And we really struggled with that. And I think that's where Pigs comes unstuck and where there were sort of mistakes in the design made. Is trying to navigate these two kind of things that felt like they didn't really fit together. It was very interesting, I think, for everyone concerned, but it kind of really also taught us that working on someone else's IP can be at least as tough as working on your own.
So working with another studio was daunting, but their next project would be even more of a challenge. The studio had an idea for something brand new, an open world, non-linear title, bigger in scope than anything they'd ever done before. They couldn't do it alone. They needed help and decided to partner with a publisher that could provide the support to see them through to the end of the world.
When we started thinking about Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, we knew that it was going to be a bigger, more ambitious game than we'd made before. We definitely had this idea, we wanted to do something open world and non-linear. That's a huge amount of work. We knew it would involve a bigger team. We knew that we needed not just money, although money is obviously an issue, but production support, because we'd never done anything like this before. So Jess and I sat down and we went, right, okay, we're going to be having to work with the publisher here. Let's make a list of the publishers that we think we could work with. And we'd been out to Indiecade a couple of years before and met a few people from Sony Santa Monica, and obviously they just made Journey. And we'd met them, really liked them, we knew that game company, they sung Sony's praises. So we got this piece of paper, we wrote down the top of it, Sony Santa Monica, and then there was this long pause and we went, all right, we'll come back to that later. And a week later, we just still had Sony Santa Monica written on the top of the piece of paper. We couldn't think of anyone else we wanted to work with. So we literally just dropped them an email when, I don't know if you played Dear Esther, or we've got this Amnesia title we're working on at the moment. We've got this idea for a game, we'd really like to make it with you, what do you think? They went, we get it, we can see where you're going, and we know what you're capable of as a team, we know that kind of the vision of what you're doing. And they really trusted us with it. And it was a big step forwards for us, and it was obviously quite a big game for them as well, in terms of it's been 3 years development. They trusted us, they believed in us, and that's a pretty amazing thing.
So, from modding through Dear Esther and A Machine for Pigs to Everybody's Gone to the Rapture and beyond, the Chinese Room have certainly come a long way in just a few short years. As the question comes to what they'll do next, can they see a common theme or trend that runs through all their games to define the spirit of the studio?
I wouldn't say what defines a Chinese Room game is saying, well, there's no mechanics, well, there's a lot of story, well, you move very slowly. Although, so far, it's probably a pretty good way of defining them. I think it's about us saying, we want to make the games we want to make. We want to be passionate about the games we make. We want to always move forwards. We don't just want to do the same thing over and over again. We want to enjoy what we're making. We want to make games that people love, even if that means not everybody's going to love them. And we want to have fun with it. And we want to, enjoy coming to work every day and going, this is what I get to do for a living. I can't believe I get to make games for a living. That's just awesome. That's amazing. Who'd have thought it? And that must never stop. And I think that attitude informs the types of games we make. And I don't think it's probably very likely we'll ever make a highly mechanically driven game at any point in the near future. We might do, if we come up with an idea and we go, hey, that's really interesting, let's make that. We'll do it, But it's about always keeping that passion, always keeping that sort of vision of going, we love what we do. And if we stop loving what we do, we'll go and do something else.
And much like the people of Yorton, our time here is up. Assuming that the world's still here next week, you should attempt to communicate with us on our official Facebook page or on Twitter using the hashtag VGN. Until next time, be it in this life or the next.
I might be a few rungs short of a ladder, but you can still climb on.